This is Tech Vibe Pittsburgh, your front row seat to Pittsburgh's technology and innovation ecosystem. And I'm your host, Jonathan Kirsting with the Pittsburgh Technology Council. So here's something to think about. What if your passwords could just disappear without sacrificing security? As cybersecurity threats increase, protecting your business against breaches and unauthorized access has never been more crucial. This episode explores how Peg.io is leading the charge in passwordless authentication, offering a robust solution to the age-old problem of credential theft. Keep on listening to learn about Peg's innovative device-bound security approach and how it eliminates the risks tied to traditional passwords. You can understand why passwordless technology is more than just a trend and is here to reshape cybersecurity. And discover actionable tips for enhancing your business's security posture from Peg's experienced team. So keep on listening as we welcome CEO David Rihak to discuss how Peg's approach is truly redefining cybersecurity. It's been a while since we talked to you. It's been about a year or so.
It has.
And I've always been really stoked about your company because the way you guys are approaching basically the death of the password, I think is very exciting to me. And as anyone who listens to any of my podcasts, I am like the biggest fan of people who are building cybersecurity solutions because I don't know. I hate the people out there hacking, man. Like I get it, but at the same time, it's like, I like it when there's folks like you out there building really cool solutions that keep that kind of stuff from happening. So I'm glad to see you again. I know so much has probably changed with you and the company and everything like that. So I'm excited for an update today, man.
All right, man.
So in case someone's just listening to this for the first time, give us the elevator pitch for what Peg is all about.
So Peg is basically, you just said it. It's all about getting rid of passwords.
Yeah.
Passwords are a big issue still, right? I think last year, 2023, there's a big report done by Verizon. That's something, by the way, I urge everyone to look into.
Okay.
Cybersecurity is something everyone should sort of like learn basics about. This is a really cool way to do it because you read, 1-2 pages about what's really going on. They're looking into some 10,000 breaches that happened. It's quite a big number.
Pulling the highlights, the main kind of themes and trends that are coming out of that. Okay, I like it.
And it's like statistically relevant, right? It's not just like ideas and opinions people have, but it's actually like what's actually happening. And they found out that like 49% of the time, it's unauthorized use of stolen credentials is behind successful attacks, right?
So someone actually gets someone's password by some social engineering techniques in order to get it, and then go log in as that person, use the password, get in, and start having fun, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. They may like sell it on the dark web or something, and someone else uses it, and then boom, they're in, right?
It's a whole thing. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a big problem. So that's what we're doing. We're like battling passwords, coming up with a new concept, which is device-bound access security, basically. So the idea is instead of having something you remember, you have a device that is sort of remembered for you, right?
I like that. Okay.
And you have something we call device-bound access. That means you basically log into your company services with a device that's been authorized. And as a user, you have multiple authorized devices, and you sort of do the things that you used to do the same way you would do them before, but you're just really well protected.
Excellent. So are you working with like managed service providers who are providing that service then for a company so that becomes part of their security protocols? Yeah. Which I think is just really cool.
We're doing both. We're doing both, working with MSPs, especially with those that are sort of heavily focused on cybersecurity. The reason being is they sort of get us, right? Like they're the guys that sort of know how this stuff works.
Or they've been hacked before. They understand, like, okay, we got to make sure this doesn't happen again.
You say credentials, they start sort of like looking around.
Exactly. Credentials, what credentials?
Anyone remember that situation? No?
No, never.
Never. Exactly, yeah. But anyway, so like we work with a lot of those guys. They get us. They understand networking. They understand this like deep tech cybersecurity stuff, and I think they really appreciate what we do because it's like, well, we go really in depth. There's a lot of like very, very technical knowledge, but that's the kind of stuff that like most companies won't really understand and appreciate. But so then that's sort of why that's working out well for us. But we're also working with some businesses, sort of like trying to help them out directly. It's much easier for us when they're more sort of on the Google workspace side of the because honestly, like Google and Microsoft are a big thing when it comes to securing a business.
Yeah,
it's the place to start for companies that are using Microsoft 365, a lot of the times
Think about the number of companies using that. So you got a very big addressable market there.
Oh, yeah, it's like everyone, right?
It's like everybody, right? That is the market, I guess.
VC's like that. But anyway, I mean, like, if you're using MS365, you're likely served by an MSP because, like, honestly, it's because Microsoft, like, there's a lot of legacy. They've made life kind of difficult in some way also for companies because there's like the operating system, then they've got like Active Directory on servers and all this stuff that's just sort of like been there for decades. And
that's why I always have difficulties navigating around.
It's
because
hard,
I feel like
hard.
there are times it's like, wait, why is it wanting me to authenticate to this thing when I've already been there? Yeah, it gets nutty.
It gets complicated, and it's like, well, yeah, but it's the way it is, right? But anyway, so that's why a lot of these companies like kind of need to actually work with an MSP or an MSSP.
They got to manage that for them.
Someone's got to do it because if you don't know how to do it, like it's not going to work out for you. But with Google, it's a bit easier, honestly, because it's like a purely cloud-based service, right? And honestly, I think the only kind of security hole that's in there is really associated with the credentials and with the authentication.
That makes so much sense. If you're on Google, that is the one place where if someone's going to get in, they
That's
just have to have that.
Right?
There's no other way.
There's not really another way, right? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Google's got to do a lot of stuff to
course.
actually secure like the other ways, right? There's a lot of different ways.
Right.
Services can be hacked. There's still running infrastructure. Like, I mean, we don't see it, but it's still there, right?
Right.
But yeah, like from the service point of view, you as a user or a company that's sort of using Google Workspace, that's sort of just what it is, right?
I love it, man. First off, I just love the idea that like with your service, it's good. You just go in and it knows the password because it's been set up for you. So there's no.
It doesn't know the password.
And it doesn't know the password even. Exactly. I don't even know the password. You just know that it knows it's you.
I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation where I'm like, okay, like explain to me how this big thing works, and I just sort of go and explain. And sometimes I go into a lot of detail, and then the person after like 30 minutes of talking about this, the other person's like, but where did you put in the password? I'm like, no, I didn't put it anywhere. It's not there. It's a passwordless system.
I was going to say, it's like a passwordless password system. I'm like, okay, now I'm confused. But no, it's actually very simple, but very complicated technology, obviously, to make that happen, which is pretty cool, man. Yeah.
One thing I do want to like say, since we're talking about this, I think a lot of the times what people imagine is something like a password manager, where you have a password is just not visible, right? That's what a password manager is.
Exactly.
But this is not what we're doing. And the password manager.
I'm glad you're bringing it up because that's a really good,
it's really important.
It's a differentiator because this isn't my manager. This is literally, there is no password that you can see.
Yeah.
It's not being stored anywhere.
Exactly.
Right?
And the reason why that's important is that if you have a password manager, and the password that's stored in the manager gets either hacked from the password manager.
Then they have all your passwords.
They've got all your passwords, right? If the database of the target company gets hacked, like if Google gets hacked directly, for example, or maybe if you use the same password in other services that get hacked,
right?
The adversary will still be able to get it, right? So that's the whole point of why it's important to differentiate between passwordless and password managers.
Right.
Because password managers really are, honestly, they're showing to be quite a big problem.
Right.
1Password, LastPass, and these companies, they got hacked like twice in the last 2 years. So yeah.
It's scary, but so obviously, I mean, this is such a novel solution that obviously, getting it in front of the IT managers and letting them see the power of this, right? Yeah. I mean, it takes a change of mindset because they're just saying, "Oh, it's just a password manager." Like, no, it's not. So you got to give some education to it.
Right, yeah.
But I'm assuming as you walk them through this and it kind of sinks in, they're like, "Wait a second, this just makes too much sense." I just feel like this is such a thing. Like, why would you not do this, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand why something else would be a better alternative.
Well, you got me.
See, I'm ready to sell for you right now, man. I'm ready to go.
You're doing a good job.
Put me on the staff, man. I'm good at this stuff. No, like I said, when I first learned about what you guys were doing, I was just super impressed because I think this is a very powerful solution. And with my love of being able to keep the hackers out, I'm like, man, this is cool stuff. So yeah,
and we think so too. That's why we're doing it, right? I think it's worth doing it for sure. It's a huge sort of way forward, I think, or step forward. I think a lot of it too, like, you'd think like, why haven't we done this sort of before? And there's still a part of it is realizing, like we've been doing on-premise stuff for a long time. Mm-hmm. VPNs were they were an effective way of protecting stuff, right? But that's all gone, right? Like not like, Google Workspace, Microsoft, like if you're using that, which you probably are, you don't really have that because it doesn't work anymore, right?
Absolutely.
So that's
Interesting stuff. So your passion for this, I mean, you're like cyber through and through. Like, I mean, this, I think you live and breathe and eat this stuff 24/7. And you've kind of spun this out to kind of a new podcast that you're putting together, which I think is pretty exciting, where you're really going deep on this stuff. I mean, you're getting super techie with it, which I love, because as you're doing this, you're actually learning more about the environment out there, and then how you can improve your product to go with it. So tell me about what you're doing. What are you up to, David?
So actually, this is it's not out yet. We've only recorded a few first few
no worries
sessions. It's been a hell lot of fun. It's a great fun thing, sort of a different thing for me to do as well. To be honest with you, it's a sort of flipping things around and sort of like getting to ask questions. Like usually I'm the guy under the microscope, and this is kind of nice. I get to kind of like just sort of switch roles, right? And but anyway, what we're doing is I'm basically talking to a lot of MSPs, cybersecurity leaders, a lot of CISOs, and people just really know their stuff, right? Like I get to talk to like people that are just have been responsible for multiple companies that have assets worth of billions of dollars, right? I'm really interested in what you have to say.
They've got a lot to protect, right?
They've got a lot to protect, and they got a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, right? They've had the good and bad, of course, too. But what's really fascinating to me is that a lot of the times I found that they may not actually see things the same way. Like you ask one person and they're going to tell you something totally different from another person. And that's kind of interesting to me, is because, I always kind of like, there's a lot of standards and a lot of like best practice stuff around cybersecurity. And that kind of makes people think, I think, that it's kind of like, there's like laws of physics and this is like laws of cyber. And I think like fundamentally, like we're on the way to get there. But if you talk to some of these people and you kind of find out, oh, well, there's a lot of different philosophies around cybersecurity. And these experts, these really heavyweight hitters, right, like in this space, they just have different opinions about these fundamental questions. And I think that's really fascinating. So I put together these 12 questions that I ask people.
Okay. And yet you're using the same 12 questions, which I love. You got this, it's like standardized, which I love, because like, I think a lot of times when I see people that are in the cyber world, they tend to fall in these different camps. They'll have their opinions and they kind of get grouped, and that's how they believe. But you're taking a different approach, where you're trying to learn from as many of them as you can and kind of, I think, like synthesize them a little bit, right? Because that way then you're getting an even better understanding of what people are facing out there.
And also what I actually like, one of the things that I was sort of like, okay, we got to do this right, was I said, like this is going to be a totally separate project from what we're doing at PAIG, because I want to make sure people actually can say whatever they have, whatever's on their mind, and that it's not sort of influenced by mine or the view of the world that we're sort of like the philosophy that we have at PAIG, right? Because there's different philosophies, and who's to say that I'm right?
Exactly. Well, yeah. But when it comes down to it, when you have discussions, that's when problems start to get solved, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our opinions, but when we put them together and we start seeing that I can take what you're doing, someone else is doing, and that becomes something that becomes a solution for somebody.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what I actually want to do eventually is to really take these 12 questions and do sort of like statistics around them, and to see, okay, so which are the topics that there's a lot of like convergence, and where's like
you're going to collect some great data, man. You can start chopping this up, man. I mean, put the AI machine on it, man. You're start pulling some cool stats out of it. So I'm all about it. That's interesting, man. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of what you guys are up to. I mean, where do you see PEG moving in the future? Because I mean, obviously, cybersecurity only becomes more and more important, and it's ever changing, of course, as well too. How are you guys moving forward? I'm excited for you guys.
Like we've been partnering up with a lot of new companies, helping customers. I think that's sort of our mission right now. We have a product that we think is great that can help out a lot of folks.
Let's get people buying it, right? Absolutely.
Right, exactly. So it's a lot about sort of getting out there right now.
Totally.
And making sure that, and educating. I think that's a really important part of it, is making sure people understand the basics around sort of what, especially like we can't do everything, of course. Like as I said, like there's a lot of stuff to be done in cybersecurity. Our whole approach is focus on what's most important. So like that's sort of why I look at stuff like the data breach report by Verizon. Is I really want to make sure we're focusing on the top thing. That's a like really like the thing that's going to affect most people, right? And so that's what we're doing. And that's sort of what we're trying to get across, is the message of, like cybersecurity is something that you can't really outsource totally. You have to take some ownership of this. This is really about your business. This is like if it goes flop, right? Like it's if you get hacked, if your if your servers are encrypted with ransomware, or your email address gets hacked, your account is used to, I don't know, infiltrate another company, they're going to sue you. And there's a lot of different things that can happen.
It gets crazy, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And that's why I think it's so cool that you're really being thoughtful here. You're collecting the data, you're analyzing, you're having conversations. You got this awesome solution you're trying to educate all these different users on. I just think you have a great approach to it. I'm very excited for you guys. And it's a pleasure talking to you because I get excited because I think it's a great company. I want to see you guys sell more and more because I want people to be secure and locked down. So take that, hackers. David, you're the best. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thanks, man.